Hey, welcome to another Hat Stack Mike tier list, and this time I'm ranking all the Nintendo systems, consoles, and handhelds. And this tier list was made by probably meant to be Sync SSB, Super Smash Bros., so thank you for making this. Alright, let's get going. Starting off with the Super Nintendo. Wow, starting off strong. Where's this gonna go? Okay, yeah, anyone who knows me is gonna know this is gonna go in S tier. The 16-bit generation's like my favorite, that defined my childhood, and the Super Nintendo, wow. So many legendary games that are still great to play today, you know, Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2, Zelda: A Link to the Past, and beyond that, just the third-party support it got too, all the fighting games, that's where Street Fighter started on console, and all the JRPGs, which I don't really play, but I know it was great for that, and just, wow. Plus Super Nintendo had its own identity, like, it had that sound chip, or if you heard Super Nintendo music, you knew that was Super Nintendo music. And I loved it. And all the Mode 7 stuff was pretty cool too. That was very Super Nintendo-y, you know. Mario Kart and F-Zero and Pilot Wings had like the rotating kind of pseudo 3D look to it, which was pretty cool. And oh man, I don't even know what to say. Super Nintendo is just so legendary. It's potentially my favorite Nintendo system of all time, which there's one other system that might rival it that I'll get into in a bit, but just, I love the Super Nintendo so much. S tier, absolutely. Alright, moving on. Nintendo Switch. Alright, remember like 10 seconds ago when I said that another system was going to potentially rival it? Yeah, Switch, S tier. Nintendo has knocked it out of the park with the Switch. Just beyond what the system can do itself, its library, you know, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm still obsessed with that game like 5 years later. Oh man, I've loved the games on the Switch so much. And then beyond that, just the Switch itself, I play it on the TV, I play it on the go, I go to a place like Starbucks all the time and, you know, order a drink, put it on the table, put my Switch on, play tabletop mode, and I love it. I just love everything about the Switch. And it's gotten pretty good third-party support too. I know it's kind of been an up and down thing with Nintendo, but yeah, Switch has just been knocking it out of the park. And you know, I'm still playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe all the time, and I love my PS5 and Xbox Series systems, but yeah, Switch is still my go-to. That's still the system I play all the time, and I'm always finding new stuff on it to play, and then new stuff's always coming still, even we're like in its 7th year now, so I know the Switch 2 or whatever else is coming is coming out, gonna be coming pretty soon here, and part of me is really excited to see what comes next, but part of me just isn't ready for the Switch to end. I love the Switch so much, I wanted to keep going, but hopefully the next system is similar to the Switch, you know, has the same functionalities, and you know, it's just kind of the next step. Less archaic hardware, but we'll see. But for now, yeah, Switch is potentially my other favorite Nintendo system ever. I love the Switch. Alright, that's 2 glowing S tier reviews in a row. Now we have Virtual Boy. I wonder where this is gonna go. Alright, yeah, I'm gonna be predictable here. It's D tier. Virtual Boy sucks. It's actually, yeah, it's the only system on here I never actually owned, but I've played it enough to where I feel like I can judge it, and it is shit. I do not like Virtual Boy. I had one friend who had one like way back, and I played at his house a bit, and then I've played the store models, and I go to retro gaming expos, and there's usually a Virtual Boy set up for people to try out, and I'll give it another go then, but I've never liked it. I never thought it was cool, even back in 95 when it was supposed to be like, oh, it looks like virtual reality. No, it was just like red all over the place. That wasn't cool. The Wario Land on it seemed pretty cool. I played a few levels of that and I enjoyed it, and yeah, I'd like to properly give that a game a go someday, but otherwise everything else I tried on Virtual Boy was just, nah. Yeah, Virtual Boy, I could maybe see what they were trying to do with it, maybe, but the execution was so bad that, yeah, by far the worst system out of all these. I'll just straight up say it right now. Alright, moving on, Wii U. Alright, I had 2 S tier, 2 S tiers in a row, and now, I'm sorry, 2 D tiers in a row. I'm sorry, Wii U fans, I hate the Wii U. It's mostly the gamepad. I hate that gamepad. It's giant and clunky and uncomfortable, and they really tried to force it when it shouldn't have been, and God, the Wii U. And the library too, it had some good games. The Wii U had some good games. But it just, you know, the other Nintendo consoles had those, like, that big Mario game, and then the Wii U had Super Mario 3D World, which was cool, but it wasn't that big game we all wanted. And then, yeah, even when it launched, like, launch was with Nintendo Land, which was pretty cool. And then its big headlining title was New Super Mario Bros. U, which that was not going to make people want to buy a Wii U, and it didn't really even utilize the gamepad, so it's like, why would people want to buy this giant clunky gamepad system when the headlining game wasn't really even using it? And yeah, actually very few games utilized that gamepad, which was always a huge problem I had with it, because like, why force this gamepad when games aren't really even using it? I'm trying to think, like, Game & Wario used it in a pretty good way, but that game wasn't very good and was like so light on content. And let's see, there was it Kirby and the Rainbow Curse? That was kind of cool to use on the gamepad, but I can't really think of much that utilized the gamepad in a meaningful way. Star Fox Zero tried to, but no, that game, no. And then let's see, like Smash Brothers for Wii U was really good, but I didn't use the gamepad for that. And at the time, I thought Smash Wii U was the best Smash Brothers, but you know, once Ultimate came, that just demolished that in the rankings, and yeah. So yeah, I don't like the Wii U, and like I said, I know there's some people out there who like it, and if you're one of them, then I'm sorry for shitting all over the system you enjoy, but just to me, that was like the darkest time to be a Nintendo fan. All right, moving on from Wii U to Wii. I actually love the Wii. I'm going to put an A tier. And yeah, at the time, that was revolutionary. The motion controls, that was really cool. And yes, there's a lot of shovelware. Some of developers took the motion control idea too far and just made absolute crap with it. But if you don't look at all the crap, the Wii had a lot of amazing games. Super Mario Galaxy, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which may be controversial, but I thought Brawl was so much better than Melee when that came out. Yeah, we finally got Sonic, and then Diddy Kong, King DDD. Beyond new characters, just the Subspace Emissary, that was awesome. And yeah, WarioWare Smooth Moves too. That used the motion control in a great way. And of course, I have to bring up Wii Sports because holy crap, that was a phenomenon. That took the world by storm. Like, I know everyone says this, but yeah, I have family members who never cared about video games who were just really into Wii Sports, mostly the bowling. We always played bowling, sometimes, you know, baseball or something, but bowling, at least from my perspective, was the main attraction there. And yeah, I can't understate how huge Wii Sports was, and kind of the Wii in general from that. Yeah, I have really good memories with Wii. I love Wii, and you know, if you don't look at the shovelware, yeah, Wii just stands out as being one of Nintendo's best to me. Alright, Nintendo 3DS. This is also going to A tier. I love 3DS. It is... Move on. 3DS is probably my favorite dedicated handheld. So, you know, not counting Switch, which was hybrid. I don't know what category I was into. Anyway, yeah. As far as dedicated handhelds go, 3DS is my favorite. I love 3DS. I don't even care about the 3D, so I'm not really factoring that. Just the library. I had such a good time with its library. Super Mario 3D Land was cool. Kid Icarus Uprising. That game didn't get a lot of recognition, but I love that game. And even stuff like, we got a new Pilot Wings game after forever, Pilot Wings Resort. I love that. And playing like Street Fighter on 3DS, that was cool. And of course, I have to bring up Animal Crossing New Leaf. I didn't talk about Animal Crossing on Switch, but I played a lot of New Horizons, but New Leaf, that's probably the Animal Crossing I put the most of my time into, because New Leaf I played a lot for a few months, New Horizons I played a lot for a few months, but New Leaf I played off and on for years. That was just the game on the 3DS. And yeah, and they had the Virtual Console, which was cool, and yeah, Mario Kart 7, I played a lot of online Mario Kart 7, so that was really cool. I have a lot of good memories with that, and oh yeah, and all the remakes. had some great remakes. Ocarina of Time, you know, one of my favorite games of all time. That got a great remake on 3DS. Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64 3D is great. I love that too, and just yeah, 3DS is awesome. Really good system. All right, moving from 3DS to Game Boy Advance. I'll put this at the end of A tier. I like Game Boy Advance a lot, and it's got a solid library of games. One thing I'll say which was weird though is it never got an original Mario platformer. All of the platforming Mario games on the Game Boy Advance were just ports, which I always thought was weird. And, you know, there are ports of great games, you know, Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 3, but just it never got its own original Mario game. That still kind of bugs me, but okay, beyond that, no. Some great games, obviously the Sonic Advance games, you know. Sonic Advance 3 is still one of my favorite Sonic games. And original Mario Kart, Super Circuit, that's pretty good. And WarioWare, that started the WarioWare series, and I love WarioWare, the original. Even though it's probably the shortest one, I still love it. And had stuff like Mario and Luigi, that was pretty cool. And yeah, I just like the Game Boy Advance. It didn't have the best lineup of games, but it had a very solid game library. Game Boy Color. I feel weird about Game Boy Color and where to rank this because it has such a small library of its own original games and was kind of meant to be like a stopgap between Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. I'm gonna put in C. And it's like I can't be too hard on the Game Boy Color because it was so short-lived. But you know, if I look at its library, it had like Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. That was cool, and I heard it had good Pokemon games. I never played any of the Game Boy Color Pokemon, so it had stuff like Shantae and a few others I can't really think of right now, but kind of the big thing about Game Boy Color was there was stuff like Link's Awakening. They put that over on the Game Boy Color. It was the same game, just now with color. And that's kind of what Game Boy Color was. It wasn't meant to be like a leap in graphics, just the same graphics, but now with color. Oh yeah, and the Zelda Oracle games, I forgot to mention that. And just, yeah, for what it was cool. It didn't have much of its own library, so I can't really place it high, but I can't be too hard on it either, so it's gonna go in C. Nintendo DS. I love the DS. It's gonna go right here snugly in A. Yeah, the DS is great, and kind of like the Wii, a lot of the developers kind of took the touch controls too far in ways I didn't like, but when it was utilized correctly, it had some great games. WarioWare Touched, I love that, and oh yeah, The World Ends With You, one of my favorite games of all time, was on the DS, and that made great use of the touch controls. Using all the different psych abilities with that, I loved it. And yeah, otherwise just a really solid library. It started the new Super Mario Bros. Series, which, you know, it got stale as it went on, but that first new Super Mario Bros. Game, I loved that. I played so much of that. Mario Kart DS was great. I think that was the only Mario Kart with like a mission mode. That was cool. And, oh yeah, the Sonic Rush games. Sonic Rush and especially Sonic Rush Adventure. Oh, I love Sonic Rush Adventure, and yeah, I have a lot of memories of, I had another friend who had Sonic Rush Adventure. We played multiplayer all the time too, and those are some great memories, and yeah, I have really fond memories with the DS, just that era. With the DS and the Wii, I don't know. It's kind of a warm, cozy era of my life when I think about it. Just very fond memories, and great library of games. And even Super Mario 64 DS, with its awkward D-pad controls, I still love that. And playing as the different characters. Yeah, just a great system. Great system. A tier. The original Game Boy. I do love the Game Boy, and I have really good memories with it. I'm actually gonna put this in B tier though. This is the only handheld this applies to, but yeah, when there were multiple handhelds in the market, when the Game Boy was out, this is the only time I preferred the non-Nintendo handheld, because I also had a Game Gear, and I love the Game Gear. Like, I love the Game Boy, but I really love the Game Gear, so I played Game Gear way more than Game Boy, and even today I can't think of Game Boy without like directly comparing it to Game Gear in my head, and the Game Gear wins out. But with that being said, the Game Boy still had some great games on it. Super Mario Land, Kirby's Dream Land, Super Mario Land 2, Tetris, obviously. And just, yeah. I have some good memories with it, but most of my handheld gaming in the early 90s was Game Gear, but... And yeah, I know Game Boy had more, but I'm like blanking on what else it had, really, right now. It had some solid games, and... I think its older brothers in the handheld space had a better library. But, the Game Boy started it all with handheld... Well, not with handhelds, there's the Game & Watch and stuff, but handhelds as we know them with interchanging cartridges stuff. Game Boy started that, and I have a lot of respect for that, but, when I look back at its library, it was good, but not great. So, it's going in B tier. And yeah, I think that covers that. Nintendo GameCube. Some of you might not like this placement, but I'm gonna put this in B tier. I like the GameCube. I have some great memories with GameCube, but I don't know. Parts of its library, when I look back on it not as fondly as other consoles. Like, the heavy hitters on the GameCube, to me, were lesser than previous installments. Like, I didn't like Super Mario Sunshine very much. And as I talked about in my Zelda tier list video, Wind Waker's not one of my favorites. It's lower on my list. And... yeah... But, yeah, with those negatives out of the way, it had stuff like Super Smash Bros. Melee, F-Zero GX, that was an amazing game. And even WarioWare Party games, that doesn't get talked about much at all, but I love that. That's such a good game to have if you have multiple people over. And, Mario Kart Double Dash was pretty cool. I still hate Baby Park, but Double Dash is pretty cool. And the third party on the GameCube was actually really cool. It had, that's where Sega came over with Super Monkey Ball and, of course, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Sonic Adventure GX, Sonic Heroes, and even like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I love playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on GameCube. So yeah, and it had quirky stuff too, like Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. I love that game. It's another game I don't really see talked about much, but it was cool. It was probably when Nintendo was at its most quirkiest, I want to say, for better or for worse, which for cases like Super Mario Sunshine, to me didn't really work out. But yeah, GameCube was different, and I appreciate it for that. Oh yeah, and the Star Fox games on GameCube, I forgot to mention those. I did not like either of those. Star Fox Adventures was like kind of okay, but... and then I just straight up did not like Assault. And Luigi's Mansion was cool. That was another quirky experimental game, and not one of my favorites, but I liked it. So I like GameCube, but to me, the other consoles, most of the other consoles were stronger. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's how I feel. Moving on, NES. Alright, this console is legendary, and I have an immense amount of respect for it, but I think I'm still gonna put this right here in B tier. Because while some of its library is just legendary and still great to play today, a lot of it does not hold up. But a lot of the big Nintendo games, Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, Kirby's Adventure, and stuff like Mega Man, especially Mega Man 2 and 3, those are amazing games, it's still great to play. And depending on who you ask, Legend of Zelda, I still like playing the original Zelda. Other people, not as much. But then you get stuff like Ice Climber. Have any of you played Ice Climber recently? It's not very good. And just, it had the highest third-party support out of, any Nintendo system, but a lot of it was not good. Most Nintendo games, if you pick up a random NES game nowadays, it's not going to be very good. And, there are obviously hardware limitations, and I acknowledge that, but if I look at the NES library as a whole, I can't really place it very high, but I still have, like I said, an immense amount of respect for it. And I'm not going to go through and name all the bad games. You probably know a lot of what I'm talking about. But yeah, NES was the first console I ever played. I still have great memories with it, so it's still going in B tier, but, it got better from there. Alright, and finally we have Nintendo 64. Well, where's this gonna go? Okay, it's S tier. I love Nintendo 64. And graphically it does not hold up, but if you could get past the goofy low poly graphics and bad frame rates, I think most of the library still holds up. Like, jump into Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. I still love all these games. Star Fox 64, and even like Killer Instinct Gold. I know Nintendo 64 wasn't known for fighting games, but I play a lot of Killer Instinct on that. And okay, the third-party support on the Nintendo 64 was very bad. I have to acknowledge that. But the Nintendo games were just legendary on the Nintendo 64. And just, wow, what a leap to 3D. I will never forget that era. Just when I first saw like all the 3D games on it and just practically shit my pants. I was so excited for Super Mario 64. And then, you know, when it finally came out, that was like all I played for months and months. And yeah, unpopular opinion, I even like the controller. I don't like how the plastic joystick wears out, but otherwise, I really like that controller, that weird-ass, great controller. And yeah, S tier, I love it. Not the very best, but pretty high up there for me. And I think that'll do it. So yeah, this is how I rank the Nintendo systems. What do you think? Where does your favorite land on my list? And how would you rank it? Like, what are your favorites? Let me know, and definitely let me know if you disagree with me. I know this isn't gonna fit everyone's bill here, but this is how I feel. This is my honest opinion on Nintendo systems. So yeah, thank you for listening to me talk about them. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a hat stacking good day.